going into the next topic, I think that's kind of newsworthy, this week is, Donald Trump, our former president, is back in the news again for a court case. I mean, I think there's like maybe 26 pending or
Welcome to the talk show, where we're kicking it and having fun on inspirational radio. The talk show, kicking it and having fun. So turn your radio up.
soon to be different court cases, and this is the first one that I've heard of recently that that has been pretty much closed out. So I know they and this was with a young lady who I guess crossed paths with Trump some years back. Her name is Jean Carroll. I think I got a picture of her. This is what she looked like now. Why you laughing?
He laughing at what he looked like now. I know what he laughing at.
Boy, look at here.
And so
You don't like
the
that piece,
details.
how it lay? You don't like that? You don't like that piece? You don't like?
don't
They
like
both got it though, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
How you gonna say that he wouldn't fool with her?
Okay.
So yeah, so that just to get an audience details, if you haven't heard, this case was a sexual assault / rape civil case. She was, and civil is key. She ended up being awarded, I think it was close over $5 million in damages from Trump. Lasagna asked while we were in the green room, how did that happen? Without any like DNA evidence, things like that. And I would play the video, but I think hopefully by now a lot of people have seen it. But Trump pretty much put his own foot in his mouth, based off of a private deposition that he did, where to Dion's point, he said that this woman wasn't his type. So he wouldn't have done anything to her. And that was one of the points that the lawyers brought up, that he's basically saying that if it is his type, then yeah, you got me. Like there could be a type that I'll get, So that was one thing. And then, he kind of, and when it was called out, there's an actual picture of her and him, back in the day at a I guess a social event or something like that, and he's talking to her and he mistakes her for his wife, his second wife, which of course, if you're married to her, that most likely is your type. So now your defense is kind of shaken there, because the lady does resemble your wife, especially enough for you to think she was your wife. He almost came across entitled, feeling that if you're a man of stature, a man superstar, he was saying that basically for millions of years, if you were that type of man, that basically you could pretty much do whatever you wanted to women. Women would let you do whatever you wanted to do with them. And I'm paraphrasing it. Again, y'all can watch it, but that pretty much, I think it took the jury like 2.5 hours to deliberate. Very short turnaround after listening to like 2 or 3 weeks of testimony. They only took them 2.5 hours to come back and say, yeah, he did this, and we're gonna give him 5 minutes.
He went to jail not too long ago for a criminal case. I guess he just kind of went and walked through and popped out, huh?
What do you mean, the one in Manhattan?
Yeah.
They actually didn't put him in jail per se. He he went there and did the fingerprints and all of that, but
Oh,
bailed out. He didn't spend no time and no sales or nothing like that.
In that
case is ongoing. So now it's kind of going through the process of he got to come back to court. They're gonna set a date, and then once they set the date, then they'll have a court case for that. And that one's more for the bribery of paying Stormy Daniels to be quiet so that he can go ahead and win this election real quick, and become president. So he didn't want, it was got to keep that on the low. And a little hesitant of mentioning his name because I ain't gonna say I'm embarrassed, because it was a really good interview. It was a very, very good interview, and definitely not on the stuff that I hear him talking about now, or striving to now. But he was basically defending why he votes for Trump, and and he represents a lot of what I hear from Christians. So kind of going back to Tony Evans, statement, do we feel as Christians that it's okay to support someone like this, right? And so when something like this happens, there's facts that have to be involved. Ain't nobody just giving somebody $5 million without proving or having something to say, hey, this person is about that life. You know what I mean? But we still find a way to support that. And as a Christian, aligning ourselves with that, what are we really saying? And so, this person that we interviewed, he said he votes for, Donald Trump. He votes for his political party because of their policies and that the policies they stand by. Again, on both sides, I can't say there's 100% of the policies that we as Christians need to support, no matter what side you are. You know what I mean? Whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, I can't see anything across the board that completely represents a kingdom mindset or what God wants on this earth. I just can't.
That is with everything.
So, exactly.
I mean, even pastor. I mean, there's times where, I don't 100% agree with everything my pastor is saying, but as a whole, I realize what his role is and what he's there to do. And so I have to kind of weigh what he says and how it reinforces or goes against my own personal study. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of what that is. You have to do that with everything. You got to, accept what you accept and, discard what you discard. But if you support that party and that's your party or whatever, you support that, but not everything that they stand for, because they don't stand for everything you stand for.
I think my concern though is, so using your pastor example, right? If your pastor, and again, a person is human, period. Like, gonna make mistakes. I can't even imagine that there's anybody that's actually perfect or anything like that. But to do stuff like egregious, like what we're talking about Donald Trump doing, right? Taking a woman against her will in a dressing room and, abusing her sexually or whatever. And then supposedly being a part of a party that is supposed to be protecting women or, protecting the femininity of women. It's just a contradiction to me. You know what I mean? And, so what it boils down for me is good leadership. You know what I mean? So there have been churches or whatever that I've gone through, and the pastor, he might be a good orator or whatever, but I might not go back to that church if a lot of what he's teaching doesn't align with what God's word is. You know what I mean? I have to still make a choice on, what I'm going to support and what I'm not going to support. And again, that's nothing personal to him. That might be someone else's, cup of tea or whatever. But, if you have somebody just living egregious all the time and you still rocking with that, after a while, it's kind of like, what's what? And I tell people all the time, if Donald Trump was a Democrat, if he was independent, if he was whatever, I wouldn't vote for him. And it has nothing to do with his political beliefs or policy, because what I see is a person that's a leader, that's divisive, that his influence, he's not a good leader. He's narcissist and he cares about himself more than humanity. And as a Christian, I don't see how we don't recognize that for what it really is.
I would just say that, with this whole Trump thing, and I think that's the whole reason that really, it doesn't baffle me why people are following him so blindly. But it just goes back to what I've been hearing, man. There's this comedian, I think he's on Saturday Night Live. He does his kind of like news topics or political views or whatever. And one of the things that he says after everything that he talks about, he's like, man, it just don't matter. It just don't matter. And at the end of the day, I think that that's the kind of time we're in, especially when it comes to him. It whatever he do, it just don't matter. Just some of these people, they're gonna still do what they do and feel the way that they feel, and a lot of times when I see them getting interviewed, they get confronted with stuff that they know he's done, and they be like, well, yeah, I still support him. I'll be like, wow.
No, what I would say is, we as a body or anybody, I would tell you to be alert. This is what I mean. When y'all remember the movie Wakanda, right? And when the king got off the throne, it was an evil king that they put in. And one of the guards said, I don't care who sits on this throne. That's who my allegiance is to. Mm-hmm. Good, bad, or in between. This is who I'm going to guard. And a lot of people feel like that with political parties. Democrat, Republicans, like, this is who I'm going to be with, right, wrong, or in between, this one with. And I think there's a danger in just doing that, because if you ease in and you're not alert to what you're believing in or who you're standing for or what you're believing with, they could ease in something that's way out of league and you just put your eyebrows up, but you agree with it because you're a diehard that. And I think that's how you get a lot of regimes like communism, and you get different things where people just, I'm allegiance to this no matter what they do. And I think that's a danger. You need to be alert why you're doing what you're doing. Don't just have an allegiance to a particular party because what you believe say they stand for certain views or certain things. Check out the individuals at the legislature, the House of Representatives, and in the White House. You don't have to be straight ticket. Pay attention to what you believe in, because I think that's a danger to just support. I'm all Democrat no matter what they do. I'm all Republican no matter what they do. They get one of them jokers up in there and have you communists talking about, well, that's the party I go for. That's why we're a democracy, so you can have choices and not just blindly do whatever. I don't think that's wisdom for anybody. I'm not saying you shouldn't support certain parties because of what they believe, but blindly doing anything in life, I think is dangerous.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, because it's so funny. Like I said earlier, when Trump was doing his deposition, he was saying that, he was basically saying that if you're a successful man, superstar, whatever, you got the right to do whatever. And so Dion was bringing up, while we were getting your mic right, the fact that sometimes when you're talking to a Trump supporter and you bring up some of these facts, I've heard women say, oh, he was just doing what men were doing. Or when he made that famous statement before he got elected about grabbing women by genitals and stuff like that. It was like, oh, that's locker room talk. So, these are people that, again, I think what bothers me is they're Christians. Like, where in the world would a Christian say that's okay? You know, that's the right way to think about that situation. You know what I mean? There's no Bible for that. There's no whatever, you know, for that. But, you know, they stand by that and they say these different things that when you really look back at it, that goes completely against who God is and what God is about, you know? So, you know, definitely completely understand your point, Sonia, because that's true. We gotta be very careful with that and what we align ourselves with, because our speech and our mind and our thought process starts to lean towards these people who have influence. I'm not gonna lie, Trump obviously has a lot of influence, you know, over people. There's a lot of people, and to be honest with you, I think they care more about Trump than they care about their party. Like, I've seen them turn on their party because their party tried to disconnect with Trump, or somebody in the, you know, a part of their party doesn't want to deal with Trump, or says that Trump did something that was out of order, you know? So that tells you that this man is bigger than his party. And to me, and this is something, you know, for our very law-driven Christian brothers and sisters, that's real close to idolization. Like, You're idolizing this man and what he's doing and what you think he's going to be able to do in this country more than the God we say we serve. And that's a problem. That's a problem.
Big problem.
And we don't have the accountability, because even when God picked officers in the Bible, it was like a man of one wife. You know, he didn't make any qualms about holding officers, a man that runs his own household. I believe it's in Timothy, you know, qualifications, you know, for good leadership. Like, what are you doing? What is your life? If you can't run your house, how you going to run, you know, the military? How you going to run the government? How is you going to run anything else? You know, it's right in the Bible, it's like laid out different statutes, like, let's have some character. And the reason I need you to have character, because who you are sets a precedent for people leading you, and your spirit is being imparted over the people that you're leading. And God really wants good for us. I don't know why we think God's the villain. Like, he wants bad and to do us in. He really wants us to have a prosperous and successful life. Like, literally, everything he does is for our good and is for us. Having laws, love, you know, your neighbor as yourself. The things that he wants us to do is very life-giving. You know what I'm saying? It's almost as if he's the villain. You got to be against God on every end. And it's like, why? Why are you so upset? You want to live any kind of way you want, do whatever you want. You don't want no rules, nobody telling you anything or whatever. The word tell you how that's going to end up. Every man's way is right in his own eyes, but the end thereof is destruction. It's the reason you need guidelines and guardrails around your life, so we can protect children, so they're not sex trafficked and then having, you know, the pedophilia up. It's not just for the sake of want people not to tell you what to do. We got to protect our legacy. Children are your legacy. They're your future. You have to protect the foundational development of their minds. You can't introduce them to sex that early, because it messes up their foundation. If there was nothing wrong with it, why do we have laws? You got to be 16 to consent. Your mind is very fragile, and some things you're not capable of understanding. You put those images, and misusing those children at foundational, it messes up their life. So right. It's a reason God wants us to do stuff a certain way. It's not to withhold good things from us. It's not to punish us, or, no, you keeping us from the good and we need to do anything we want. That will kill you doing anything you want. Like, literally.
Yeah. And
if you eat anything you want all day and night, you and then or anything, just anything. You do anything that you just want to do. I do whatever I want to do, whenever I want to do it. There's consequences to everything you do. Yeah. If you got health issues, you just eat anything, just do whatever you want. You're gonna pay with your body. You spend your money anytime you want. You're gonna be bankrupt. You know, I just do whatever I want to do. I don't have no law. I do whatever I want. I buy whatever I want. Don't tell me what to do. I just do whatever I want to do. And then you ain't got no money. You know what I'm saying is, There's a consequence to every action. Doing whatever you want is not wisdom. Having guidelines and rails and guardrails around your life is not bad. It's to prosper you and to help you. It's not to do you evil. He wants to do you good and not evil.
Absolutely. And I'll sum up this section of the show with this. There's a lot of things in America that need to be addressed, right? And I think there's a lot of things that are brought to the forefront by both sides, by Republicans, by Democrats, that really need to be addressed and really need to be looked at. The concern and the reason why it's so important to talk about this to the church is we have more power together, unified, without these different hats, to push kingdom initiatives if we come together. So what I'm saying is, if you're a Republican and you're working with the Democrats and we're walking and we see a bill that's going to benefit people and humanity and benefit what God is trying to do in this country, on this earth, we're much better coming together and pushing our elected officials to do the things that we need them to do together, rather than fighting each other and saying, oh, you're not a Christian because you're liberal, and you're not a Christian because you're this. Instead of battling with each other, we have more power. I guarantee you, we have more influence to make a positive change in this world by first keeping God first. You know what I mean? And not settling on that standard that he set for us and not wavering because I like this person or I like this politician or I like this group better than this group or whatever. If we just stand together on the things that we know to be right and true, we have more influence to make an effect or a positive effect on the world. Like, these people that we elect in office, they move by our influence. Donald Trump reaches out to the evangelical church because he knows he needs that to get what he needs to be in office or to do different things. So he's going to say what we want him to hear, or whether he believes it or not, whether he lives it or not. He gonna say it because I need you to give me that vote. On a Democratic Party, like whatever stance that you have on the letter community or whatever, they're going to say what that group needs them to say to get those votes, period. That's how politics works. That's how you get in there. You got to have a bunch of people saying, I want this people in office, and you have to cater to what they want. And imagine a unified church here in America that's not separated over politics, not separated over whatever, but we're brought together on a thing that should unify us. That's Jesus Christ. It's the Holy Spirit. That's God. You know, all of these different things that attribute us to God and kingdom. But again, we put more, it feels like we put more of our faith in elected officials than the God that we say we serve. And Sonia said it earlier, that's scary to me. That's really scary to me, because even if Trump wasn't the person that I see him to be, just a regular man is susceptible to make mistakes or make wrong decisions or, you know, do something incorrectly. You know, I've never heard of a perfect president. I've never heard of anybody in office, anyone that's walked this earth other than Jesus Christ is perfect. So, yeah, but I'm not asking for perfection, but I am asking for some decency. Like, we shouldn't have a man in office that belittles a whole gender. I'll digress.
People in office that respect people. Let's have people in office that want the good of the whole body. You want the good of every person. If it's something that can benefit all people, let's get people in there that care about people. I mean, literally, just can you care about people when you're touched with how they feel? You can know how they feel. You have a relationship and you feel like a person that represents the whole should be touched with the few. You should be able to feel the least among them. So when you get in the office, you can do the greatest for the most of them. You're not going to be perfect, but have a heart for people. And love covers a multitude of sin. You get somebody that actually loves people. It's hard to hurt people you love. I will say that.
Right.
It's hard to hurt people you love intentionally. And you get somebody with a heart that loves people, you are a better leader because you care. You're concerned. You don't just make laws about money. You don't just go for people for position. You don't just get in office to push agendas. When you legitimately care about people, you are a better leader because you're caring about laws that will help people. You're caring about laws that will help in the whole of individuals, not making law that makes one party above another party, makes one person less than another person, making laws to discriminate and keep a certain party under your thumb. When you care about people, you're making laws and things to be concerned about the whole, is what I'll say about a person that genuinely is concerned about people in general, regardless of race, color, sex, whatever. They just concerned about people. And I think that's common sense. You need to elect a person that is concerned, that has a caring heart, not narcissistic, not a person that's pushing agendas you put up in there for agenda's sake. You just get up in here and say this just to be saying it, but we need to push this agenda so we can get stuff passed to destroy everybody. Now we all destroyed. Now what you gonna do? Literally. So that's my thoughts on elected officials. Get people that are concerned about people, that care about people, that have common sense. Let's make a law that helps people and not hurt people. Is that okay?
It's hard to do that these days, though, because, back when our government started, it was just good, honest people from among the community that were put into office to kind of speak for everybody.
Uh-oh.
Now it's so much about these donations and contributions from different organizations that want to push their agenda above the needs of that person's community that elected them. That they throwing all this money. Who you gonna listen to? These people and their nagging and their wants and desires and their hurts or whatever. Or these people who pushing money in your face. And, now it's a big money grab. And so it's no more about speaking for the people and what they want and what they desire or whatever. It's speaking for these special interest groups and these lobbyists who are putting all this money in your face. So it's so almost impossible to find these politicians who are still, like they were back in the Gap, about the people and about doing what's right by them. And, seeing to their needs. It's now just about getting in there and getting as many donors as you can and getting that money up. And that's important. That's why things are the way they are. That's why we can't do anything about these guns because, the NRA and a lot of these interest groups are pushing their agenda. To say, no, we don't want no more gun laws. We don't want more gun controls. Here's some money. Stop that from happening. But if they can get them people out of their ear and listen to the actual people who are being shot up and stuff like that, then, we would probably have a real nice gun policy, a real strict, thing that could deter some of these things from happening or whatever. But it's not going to ever happen because, like I said, it's just too much money out there for these people to pass up, to turn down.
Yeah. No, completely. I agree to a certain extent. Deanna, I think, honestly, those lobbyists have been around since the beginning. I think it's more lucrative now to be a politician than it was before. But I think there's always been this undergird of who the person with the biggest contribution has the biggest voice in some of these politicians' ear. And to both of y'all point, as long as it's that way, it makes it very difficult. But it goes back to what I was saying. Imagine us coming together and we're voting politicians based in and holding them accountable to do the things that we voted them in to do. You know what I mean? I'll use Greg Abbott as an example. In Texas, I believe he moves without the fear of him ever having to be voted out of office. The way, the voting is set up here in Texas and how the lines are drawn, he could lose the popular vote every year and still win Texas, just based off of the rural areas and the areas that, really, really support, what he's pushing, which is, again, the Second Amendment, gun laws, that different things like that. As long as he continues to draw that narrative, I don't see him having any type of fear of losing his position. You know what I mean? And if a person is operating in that way, then that can be very dangerous. What I'm speaking to is my brothers and sisters who live in these rural areas, right? And they really stuck on their gun laws. Your brother here is not saying you shouldn't have a gun. What I am saying is we need to have some little regulations in here to make sure that, or try to limit people having guns who can do the harm that we've been seeing lately. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you shouldn't have your guns. And I don't see why Greg Abbott or anybody else in that position can't say those words as a leader and be about that. I don't know why they have to stay so far away from that, other than the fact that that's not the talking point of one of your biggest contributors, which is the NRA. So, but that leads into our last topic for tonight, relationship, because that's what it boils down to me. Like, a lot of what is so funny. I was having a little back and forth discussion with a lady on TikTok, and one of the things she said was, you need to stop quoting what your pastor told you. And I started laughing because, what I was talking to her about was revelation that, I feel God's given me specifically about it. And this.
Welcome to the talk show.